Reddit Ask Me Anything. I am Andrew Bustamante, a former covert CIA intelligence officer and founder of the EverydaySpy.com training platform. Ask Me Anything. I share the truth about espionage. After serving in the US Air Force and the Central Intelligence Agency, I have seen the value and impact of well-organized, well-executed intelligence operations. The same techniques that shape international events can also serve everyday people in their daily lives. I have witnessed the benefits in my own life and the lives of my fellow agency officers. Now my mission is to share that knowledge with all people. Some will listen, some will not, but the future has always been shaped by those who learn. Do you consider it important for your average citizen to familiarize themselves with espionage spycraft technology? Why or why not? Bonus. Do you feel like your work has been worth it? A resounding yes to both. Plus a moment of genuine appreciation for those still doing the work every day. The everyday person can learn a lot about protection, privacy, and maximizing information security by studying just a little bit of spy tech. From geolocation to the weaknesses of end-to-end encryption, and even the risks associated with giving bad guys tools like the iPhone to protect their malicious intentions. I believe right and wrong are not as black and white as we are taught to think. Instead, there is a spectrum between them, and we have to make our own decisions based on the information available to us, which is really quite a lot. Oh hello. What's your opinion on Edward Snowden? What countries are the most interesting for CIA? Do you believe CIA might have their agents in places like North Korea? Should I use ad blocker? What if a messenger or a social media whatever internet resource refuses to cooperate with CIA for investigating terrorist? What info from average citizen, not a government structure's employee of a rival country CIA might find useful? What do you think of Russia and Russians? Great questions. Let me expand on one, if you don't mind. What countries are the most interesting for CIA? CIA follows the direction of American policymakers. They set our operational priorities with their funding and their policies. Where American national interests are threatened by a nation state or non-state actor, you will find dedicated covert CIA officers hard at work to protect us. Sometimes we can predict those threats. Sometimes the threats are known only to those who need to know. But no matter the threat, you can rest assured outstanding talent is working to keep you and your family safe. What is the one spy trick you would teach everyone in this Ask Me Anything right now that they can use to improve their life instantly? I actually answer that question in my podcast episode Perspective versus Perception. This is one of my favorite questions. Learning to look at the world through another person's point of view is the most important and valuable skill a spy learns. It gives them the ability to predict human behavior and build the empathy needed to understand a person's motivations and needs. These are critical elements in recruiting an intelligence source, and they also have tremendous impact on building relationships, negotiating business deals, building a professional network, and even everyday parenting. Unclassified documents have shown us that the CIA Phoenix program in Vietnam utilized the following methods of interrogation: rape, gang rape, rape using eels, snakes, or hard objects, and rape followed by murder, electric shock, the Bell telephone hour, rendered by attaching wires to the genitals or other sensitive parts of the body, like the tongue, the water treatment, the airplane in which the prisoner's arms were tied behind the back, and the rope looped over a hook on the ceiling, suspending the prisoner in midair, after which he or she was beaten. Beatings with rubber hoses and whips. The use of police dogs to maul prisoners. Do you condone this behavior? Did your superiors? I was not in the CIA during Vietnam. I don't personally condone much of what either side did during that conflict. Dad, if you are reading, thanks for your service and sacrifice for that country. You and all Vietnam vets. How do you deal, on a personal, ethical ground, with wrongdoings or bad things done by your former agency? Agency officers are compartmentalized not only to protect the information, but also to protect officers from dealing with the personal ethical impact of operations outside of their control. I trust that my fellow officers, past and present, were doing what they thought was in the best interest of the American people. Sometimes they made the wrong call. Many more times, they made the right call. But you don't hear about what CIA does right. It either stays secret or isn't seen as interesting by the media. Do you think the very existence of your field of work or its abuse denounces the failure of NATO and the UN in bringing peaceful and honest geopolitics, and do you acknowledge a role in nursing the general public's ignorance and apathy regarding specific world events, historic details and key international players, either groups or individuals? Not really. If anything, I appreciate intelligence professionals in all nations for making incredible personal sacrifices to ensure the safety of their people against those who would use deception and ignorance as tools for malice. Why do former CIA officers keep doing these ask me anythings as if we think you'll actually spill any important beans? It's hard to stop serving the public. If there is anything we can do that brings help or value, we want to do it. Spilling state secrets wouldn't actually help. It would hurt. If you want to send me a PM with the names of other former CIA officers who didn't ask me anything, I'll reach out and ask them why they did it and send you a combined answer. Can someone become a CIA officer with a misdemeanor? I would have to defer to the HR department at CIA, but we do much worse than misdemeanors in the field equals. The candidate review process is rigorous, and they look at the whole person more than any one element of their past. American lives deserve the best, which is much more important than one mistake in a person's past. Why should we trust anything the CIA says when they have historically lied to us? You don't have to trust the CIA. They will still put their life on the line for you either way. Did you ever have feeling that what you do isn't right thing? Where did you get your motivation for work? Unfortunately, that feeling is common in the intelligence profession. The good news is, you get desensitized to it over time and your moral compass become more pragmatic. The bad news is, you get desensitized to it over time and your moral compass become more pragmatic. One of the reasons I left CIA and started my own business, everydayspy.com, was because I wanted to live a life where I maintained my optimism and commitment to building a better future rather than just stopping bad guys from doing bad things. When you take down one bad guy, there always seems to be another ready to take his place. How far back do they look for you get the type of clearance you have? When I left CIA, I had to give up my C clearance. 2 years later, my full clearance timed out, so technically I have no US clearance. It's funny to think that I currently have security clearances in other countries that are higher than my US clearance. That said, my TSC went back 15 years, based on my international travel footprint at the time. What do you wish you didn't know? How vulnerable the human eye is. I bet you get this a lot, but which movies would you consider show the closest depiction of what you were actually doing? Or better, how close are movies to reality? Also, thank you for your time. Movies are pretty far off base for sure, but they have some fairly realistic elements. TV shows actually do a better job. Amazon's Jack Ryan series was pretty true to form for CIA in the first season. The Americans was also good for Tradercraft about 1.5 seasons. The Spy on Netflix now also is pretty solid. The real work of Espionage is intentionally boring, mundane, so it gets overlooked, and hence stays clandestine. It's hard to stay secret with bombs, bullets and glamour all around you. Too bad for us. How often do you go offshore? Nowadays I live offshore. The world is a beautiful place, and people are fascinating anywhere you go. Right now home is in the United Arab Emirates. I am hoping to make more places home as my children continue to grow up, like New Zealand, Georgia, Taiwan, Japan, Costa Rica, Mexico, and the list goes on. Is it possible to get a higher level clearance and work for the CIA if my wife is from Armenia? Absolutely. CIA filed officers often marry foreign spouses. It's not easy administratively, but foreign spouses become tremendous support both for their CIA spouse and even assisting with special skills like language and area familiarization. And Armenia is a beautiful country. Edward Lee Howard. Did he die or fake his own death? I have no idea, but if he faked it, I hope he is living somewhere cold and lonely. He let his country down in the worst way. What was the process of obtaining top secret clearance like? I'm not American, so I wouldn't know. It takes an average of 9-16 months, multiple interviews carried out by trained background investigators, and a detailed questionnaire that gets vetted and researched going back decades. Aside from taking a long time, it's not bad. But getting a full scope polygraph and psych test to qualify you for C clearance is not fun at all. Neither is the 2-year retest you have to do for the rest of your career. Hi, completely random, but what foreign languages are the most useful to be fluent in as an intelligence officer? Every language is useful. Keep in mind that security priorities shift. Nobody expected Urdu to be important before 2001. Then suddenly it was. I recommend people study whatever language interests them, then work toward mastery. The skill isn't really the language itself, but rather the skill of being able to learn a new language. That is the skill CIA wants. Were there any foreign assets you wanted to be genuine friends with? Are you able to reconnect with them after leaving the agency? Foreign assets are just everyday people, like you and me. They want to do what they believe is right, and they believe working secretly with CIA will help them do that. In professional intelligence, a source's security is paramount. It is extremely rare that we can reconnect overtly with a current former asset. In the event they are resettled in the US, we have many more options to meet them again in person and celebrate their work and relocation. Can you comment on the CIA torture program, please? CIA has made its official statements. I was fortunate to have no overlap with enhanced interrogation operations, but I am sad that they happened. Which international, non-US, spy agency did you admire the most? The CIA works with many other intelligence agencies around the world on its operations, so I'm wondering which one stood out for you. Mossad, Jordanian JIS, Pakistan IC, all great services that work with a fraction of CIA's budget and with many of their greatest threats sharing a border. What is the legacy of MKULTRA? If I could talk about it, I would. Sorry. Any experience working with Douglas Lowe? His book Left of Boom seemed like a great read. Was wondering how much of it actually checks out. Thanks. I have not worked with Douglas, but I'll add his book to my reading list. Thanks. Do you believe it's okay for the country to spy on its citizens? Why or why not? In many countries, citizens actually embrace heavy monitoring and government oversight to keep them safe from threats that try to mask themselves inside civilian society. While America is not one of those countries, I do want to delineate between American values and legitimate values held in other countries. Is there a hierarchy within the CIA, like only certain people know certain things? How high up were you on that hierarchy? It's less of a hierarchy and more of an controlled access thing. When your skills or talent can contribute to a case or operation, you get to read in and gain access. Sometimes that access is extremely sensitive. See restricted handling, privy, etc. Entry-level officers commonly gain this level of access, even while their more senior counterparts do not, in order to maintain information controls. Hi Mr. Bustamante, I was wondering, did you ever had a situation in which you had to observe something unfolding but was forbidden to do anything due to state policy or no involvement policy? How hard was it for you to stay professional and calm down? Many thanks. Great question. And yes, there are many times where CIA is restricted from getting involved in events as they unfold. We are trained very early on to recognize that our value comes in observing and reporting factual information, not involving ourselves in events at our own discretion. When world events threaten US interests, we have the ability to build an operation with multiple partners across the IC to work towards specific objectives impact. In those moments, we take action as an objective professional team, not as emotional individuals. Recognizing that there is a process to take measured action is incredibly helpful in keeping us calm and preventing us from impulsive reactions. Has the government cracked AES 256? Do large IT companies such as Cisco, Microsoft, etc. partner with the government to hardcode backdoors for government access to civilian devices? Are you allowed to truthfully answer these questions per your oath? I do not have any of these answers. Sorry. How does the CIA cope with protecting the identities of officers in the field when everyone has a long trail of social media accounts before they even apply to the agency? Not everyone has a long trail of social media accounts. Plenty of people have no social media footprint, and even those that have them can cultivate them to protect their operational identity. CIA can only do so much to protect an officer's cover. The majority of responsibility is on each individual officer to live their cover consistently. Dumb question. How accurate is the show, Chuck? P. Not a dumb question. I'm sure other people have wondered. 2. I haven't watched the show yet, but I'm adding it to my list now. Equals. How much did you have to travel in the CIA? And how did this affect your home family life? Are most trips a few days long? Or are they deployment-like, long-term trips? Edit. Also, why choose to live in UAE? I couldn't imagine moving from the US, especially after dedicating your career to serving it. Travel is a big part of the job. Sometimes it's just a few days, usually it's a week or more. Long deployments can actually be a lot of fun if you take the family with you. The UAE was a very cool opportunity for my entire family. My children get to experience a totally different culture than anything that exists in the West. And thanks to modern technology, I can serve the American people from anywhere in the world. The US is my heart. The whole world is my home. What happened to Jeffrey Epstein? He died. Most of the information outside of that is speculation, fear, and anger. To what extent do you think foreign intelligence services are actively involved in psychological operations in the US? How do you think Russia's internet activity has shaped our national narrative? Most importantly, how do we inoculate ourselves from disinformation? Foreign intelligence services have been running psyops in the US for a long time. That is what intel services do. Our national narrative wasn't shaped by a foreign power. The foreign power just added fuel to the fire. That is how the most effective covert influence operations work. You can't force an outside narrative. You have to amplify an internal one. The best way to protect yourself from disinformation is to start taking in information from competing sources. You have to listen to what every says. Focus on the areas where they say the same thing. Corroboration, and to prioritize the things they say that are not repeated somewhere else. When you do that, you'll find only true information, and you'll see how little genuine information is being circulated. Hey Andrew, how much of espionage is strength of personality and how much is strength of training knowledge? I've always thought of spies as requiring not only high intellect but superb charisma and personality control, i.e., ability to read lies, to lie, to manipulate people within a single conversation, to identify personal strengths weaknesses, to outfox the other guy. Is that accurate? Thanks. I absolutely believe everything in espionage is trainable. Personality just makes certain parts easier to some people. As an example, a naturally attentive, curious personality is going to pick up on surveillance detection training quickly because they are already interested in their surroundings. That same person may struggle with new languages because of the intense focus needed for long periods of time. Similarly, an introverted, detail-oriented type is likely to dominate languages but struggle when they are forced onto a street full of people where they have to decide who is following them and who is not. Both can be trained to excellence and operate side by side. Personality just helps us predict which skills may be more challenging than others. How is it you are able to do this? Ask me anything. Is the CIA really just going to let you talk about all this? Also, what was your most memorable mission? I took a lifetime secrecy oath when I joined CIA to forever protect sources and methods and my own detailed operational background. As long as I adhere to that oath, I'm free to talk about pretty much anything else. Unfortunately, that same oath is what prevents me from telling you about my most memorable mission. Sorry. Hi, no idea if you can answer this, but were you CTC? What are your opinions on the idea that the agency is becoming too much like the OSS, or that the GWOT has atrophied the intelligence community's ability to analyze world events? I cannot answer my specific division center inside the National Clandestine Service, but I will say that I believe the GWOT increased the IC's analytical abilities. If you think about it, we missed 9/11 because we were not focused on GWOT. By funding and expanding our GWOT operations, all other operations benefit secondarily from the tools, talents, and partnerships CIA has built since 2001. Bro, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.